It is so good to see you, Counselor. It's
Pleasure
really
to
good
be
to
here.
really welcome you to the program. And in the audience, welcome. Welcome very much to the program. We have as our guest J. Stuart Dankberg. He's Esquire, an attorney, and he's also a retired judge of the Civil Court of New York.
Yes.
And he's got a great number of interesting stories to tell, and he's also got a very interesting take on the human condition and the system of the legal system within the United States, and we're going to be talking about that and other matters. And Jay Dankberg, welcome very much to conversation.
It is my extreme pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's really good. I wonder, maybe we could wade in, as it were, in a sense, born and raised, that sort of thing, a little
Yes.
bit of your education, and then we can talk about cabbages and kings and legal systems and that sort of thing. But where were you born and raised, that sort of thing, and then we could get talking about other matters.
Speaking of cabbages and kings, I
Yes.
live now near where Henry used to write.
All right.
But I'm a New York City child.
Right.
I was born in the Bronx,
Okay.
lived with my parents and went to public school in the Bronx,
Right.
Queens, then back to the Bronx.
Right.
Went to DeWitt Clinton High School on Marshall
Okay.
Parkway in the Bronx.
Okay.
Went to City College up on
138th?
138th Street.
Yeah, great.
And went to St. John's Law School while I was in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And I'm a city person.
Okay, very much.
Live in the Gramercy, a Poison.
Boy.
I live in the Gramercy Park neighborhood, which
Right.
is where O. Henry used to write on
Oh,
Irving
Henry,
Place.
Yeah, he's great,
Oh,
wasn't he?
on Irving Place.
Yeah, yeah.
And my wife went to Washington Irving High School.
Okay.
And we're New York City people, and we love it.
Let me begin back when you were at college. What were you studying? Did you do history or what at undergrad?
I was a very unsuccessful civil engineering student.
Oh, you went civil engineering.
I love math. I love science.
You do, okay.
And then I got the analytic geometry and calculus and advanced physics, and I made the dean's list.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
No. The other dean's list. The dean's list said, if you don't change your major, you're out of school.
Didn't cotton to the calculus.
So I switched.
Yeah.
Calculus was fine. There was advanced calculus and analytic geometry.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I was in one of the easier engineering courses.
Right,
CE
right.
is easier than electrical engineering.
Is it? Okay.
EEs are brilliant people.
Really?
Boring as can be, but they're
Interesting.
brilliant people.
Yeah, boring people do good things sometimes.
But they're
huh?
really very, very, extremely difficult
Yeah.
for
Okay.
educational
Fair
purposes.
enough. Yeah.
But I became a liberal arts student.
Yeah.
And liberal arts was relatively easy. You
Yeah.
can cram for liberal arts. You can't cram for engineering. And
right.
I turned my almost straight D average into a almost B plus average
Very good,
in
yeah.
2 years, and was able, with a decent LSATs, law
Yeah.
school admission test,
Right.
was able to get into St. John's, which is a local New York City law school, and graduated. And have been practicing, passed the bar on my first try. And
Good for you. It's
Been
better than
practicing.
John Kennedy Jr. You had to try it 3 or 4 times, I think.
I had a friend in college
Yeah.
who failed the driving test 4 times. I mean, you know,
Yeah, right, it
people are
happens.
people. And when he finally passed, and we threw him a party.
Yes, right. You know, yeah.
Flunked the
that's
driving test 4 times. It's not easy to do.
yeah, my daddy was in law. I think
But he's
he was,
been driving now for many years.
Yes,
you know,
that's
I
right,
mean,
exactly. And you've been doing law for many
Yes.
years. Yeah. My daddy was a lawyer. He was in the class of Michigan 26 at the University of Michigan, and I believe, I'm not sure if it was both, and I may be wrong, I'm not absolutely sure, but I believe at least one of, but maybe both of the Leopold and Loeb were in his class at U of M. In 1926, he was in that class, and he was in the law. And he used to say it was a great thing because you had a lot of different avenues you could do. It's grounding. A lot of people in the political process go to the law. They study the law. And I think we have more lawyers in the United States of America than the rest of the country,
Could
the
very well
rest
be.
of the world combined. But the law is a good thing to study in order to
It's
be involved in public affairs.
The first day in law school,
Yes.
and you remember sometimes what was said. The professor or dean or assistant dean that spoke with us said, look to your left, look to your right.
Right.
When you graduate, they won't be there. In other words, 1/3 of the entering class will either drop out or flunk out for one reason or another.
Okay.
Mostly drop out. And the older you are when you enter law school, and I was in school during the Vietnam era.
Right, okay.
Some of my fellow students had served a tour or two
Right.
in Nam.
Right.
And they couldn't stand the baloney, what
Yeah.
they felt was baloney, of back to school compared to the real world where people were being shot and
Right,
blood
right.
and being killed
No,
next
yeah,
to them.
absolutely, yeah.
And they couldn't stand the nonsense.
Right, right, right.
On the other hand, I was a youngster. What they do in law school is to try to empty your brain
Yeah.
and then teach you how to think.
Okay.
You think like building a building. You think putting a foundation in
Right.
and then building on the foundation.
Right.
That's how lawyers, if they are decent, and you don't have to be smart.
Right.
You have to be able to think logically. That's
Logic,
what,
okay.
logically.
Yeah.
What lawyers think of as logic. The rest of the
Right.
world says that's legalese.
Yes,
My
right.
wife frequently says, you're talking legalese.
You're right, right, right.
And doesn't understand when I answer her question.
Right.
She'll ask me a negative question, and I'll answer as if she asked me a negative question.
Right.
She doesn't understand if I mean yes or no.
Right.
But I'm answering what she asked. I'm listening to her. I have a very bad habit of listening.
Oh, it's not a bad habit, sir.
It is if some people ask questions that they don't know what they're asking.
Oh, well, that's a different kettle of fish. As they
Don't
say,
answer what I said. Answer what I'm thinking.
Right.
Huh?
Yeah, Houdini or mind reading and that kind of stuff. Yeah, but that's
A
interesting.
lawyer once handwrote an agreement with another lawyer, and they hand it to me, and I look, and they spelled the word claim wrong. Instead of AIM, IMA or something. I said,
right.
Counselor. I said, you got an error in there.
Yeah.
He looks down, he says, handwritten.
Yeah,
He
right.
says, oh, I'm sorry. I said, must be a typo. He said, yeah, it was a typo. I went, what?
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, but it is like I had a lot of friends in undergrad and university and everything. And law, I'm trying to think. Law, the first year is the worst, or is it med
The
school?
first year. No, law, the first year is the worst.
Law is the first year.
Because they
med
try,
school is the second year.
They try to, having not gone to medical school,
Well, that's
I can't
what I'm
answer
told
that.
by some doctor friends of mine.
But the first year in law school, they try to rethink. They try to get you to rethink.
What are they trying to get out of your
Logic,
mind?
whatever there
Your
is.
notion of logic,
Logic,
or
your notion of logic of how to think.
And what do they have to get out of the mind of the student? And then let's talk after we get that straight. What they want to put back in terms of logic and the means by which to view the world.
They want you to.
What are the people bringing to that?
They want you to
that
be
they
able
want
to
get rid of?
build up instead of coming at things from the middle and working down.
Okay.
It's like walking into a movie theater in the middle of a movie.
Okay.
You can't. You'll see it from the beginning.
Do you think it applies universally to education? I mean,
Absolutely.
would an engineer want to do the same thing?
Hopefully.
Or you want to dissuade them from belief systems that they've had so that you can begin with a more like tabula rasa or something? Is that what they're thinking?
Hopefully.
Okay,
Hopefully.
yeah.
Not hopefully. Hopefully. That's why when you become a lawyer, that's
Yeah.
not the be-all and end-all, because you could become a lawyer doctor, a lawyer engineer, a lawyer politician,
I don't
a lawyer
understand.
legislator. It's the way of thinking. It's not.
It's a way of thinking.
It's a way of thinking. It's a way
an
of logic.
epistemology or something, or just a way of seeing the world and
Yes.
everything. And what differentiates? Let's say you're in the law and you're in. What differentiates the law from the way in which the citizen tends to see things in terms of the human condition, or public affairs and so forth, or the world?
It depends upon the person, of course.
Okay,
And
okay.
depends upon where they're living and what era they're living in.
Right.
We are in America
Yes.
with whatever problems we have now,
Mm-hmm.
and we've just come out of. We're in a really bad economic situation.
Yeah, it's been staggering.
And there are people who would say that the last 8 years of the presidency and the vice president
Right.
have been really bad for the country. And other people would say it's been really good for the country.
Yeah.
But look, we haven't been attacked. And on the other hand, it's our liberties are being
Right,
taken away.
right.
And there's always back and forth.
Right.
I believe, and we're all immigrants.
Okay.
Not all, but 99% of us are all
Except
immigrants.
some of the Chico.
The native, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And-
And they actually came over here about 12,000 years ago only, so there were no aboriginals. here.
But we are living in America in the year 2009
Right.
in the best, what I believe
Yeah.
to be the best society that the world has ever seen.
Yeah.
We have more freedoms in America. We have more of this. We have more of that. We have more of this. It is wonderful. Does that mean it's perfect? No way.
Right.
No way. Does that mean it can be improved? Absolutely.
Right.
And hopefully, I have a belief in the deity.
Right.
Hopefully, God will continue to smile on this country, and our president will have a long and wonderful life and be healthy and be able to think creatively.
Right.
And hopefully what we will do, my generation, the post-World War II, the baby boomers, will hopefully leave this country and this world in a better place than we got it. And we will leave it with the freedoms that we were given by the founding fathers and the founding mothers, if there were women involved, and I'm sure there were.
They
might not
certainly
have
were
signed,
there, if not right in
they
front.
may not have signed it, but you can't tell me that they weren't behind the scenes.
John Adams,
and
Particularly
Dolly
Abigail.
Madison and many others. But we have been given an opportunity for the world to that nowhere else. I mean, the first time I left the country, when I was soon after my wife and I, 41 years married.
Ah, congratulations, wonderful.
And soon after we were married, we traveled to Europe.
Okay.
My first trip out of the United States, we go to Paris, where she had been several times with her parents.
Yes.
They're European born. And in the hotel, we check in, and they say to me, "Give me your passport." And I go, "Why?" Why? This is America. I don't give away my passport. I don't, you don't walk around with ID papers in America.
Ident.
Yeah. They want my. I'm not giving them passport. My wife said, "Give them the passport." Why? We have to give it to the police. Why do you mean you have to give it to the police? They let me in the country. I got through customs. We have to give it to the police. They're going to check on you. What? This is Europe. This is educated, liberal Europe.
Yeah.
And this is the world. This is the world. In Europe, there used to be a show called Can the Camera. And
of course, Alan Funt.
Alan Funt. One of the questions was, he went to Europe and said, if you drive from New York to New Jersey, or New York to Connecticut, or New York to Virginia, do you have to show your identification papers at the border between the two states?
Right.
And many people said yes. Because when you drive from Germany into Liechtenstein, into France, into Italy, you are stopped within an hour 4 times by border guards. And you have to show used to be, now there's a common market, not anymore now, but we had to show, every half hour I was showing my ID card and my passport, passport.
Yeah. And they ask you to leave it sometimes at the hotel desk.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I know.
We're not used to that. Your eyes open when you travel.
How do we account for the fact that the United States, it was, in history, that sort of thing, and we get to 1776, it was a major year, invented the steam engine that year. Adam Smith wrote the Wealth of Nations, and they had this revolution across the ocean from feudal Europe that had been held in place. And we had notions of law that came out of the feudal period, the assize courts and all this that had come 1,000 years after the Roman Empire. And then there was what they called the Enlightenment. And the Scottish Enlightenment, the French Enlightenment, things were changing. Industrial Revolution was coming. And they set up this political system across the ocean from all of the courts, which thought of themselves as legitimate from 1,000 years of existence, and so forth. And then we had this new thing happen in in North America, with an incredible array of talent, from George Washington to John Adams and Franklin and all this. And we set up a system that was very, very unique and very new at the time, don't you think?
Absolutely unique.
I think the aristos in the feudal courts of Europe thought that we were just a bunch of bumpkins across the ocean. Crazies, right.
Crazies.
And if we hadn't pulled it off, we would have been hung by the yardarm with greater glee. Mr. George III called George Washington a terrorist.
Absolutely.
And because they were upsetting the apple cart and so forth.
It had never been in the world.
But we have set up something that is very unique and is there with principles of social and political, economic organization that is for the ages, only to be changed a little? Or are there big changes yet coming out of the technological state in which we find ourselves and so forth? And what do you think along those lines? Is the pattern of the United States of America, which is to be honored, as you say, one that is for the ages and all the world? Is it
the beauty of our system
is
that it's flexible.
Okay, yeah.
The words of the Constitution, imbibed with the spirit of the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, right.
Imbibed with the spirit of the papers, the Federalist Papers.
Right.
Because some of the Federalist Papers, the concepts were incorporated and some were not.
Yeah.
Remember what John Kennedy did. John Kennedy was a young,
a prince.
enthusiastic, good-looking Camelot.
Yeah.
His
A
wife
class
was
act.
gorgeous,
Yeah.
wonderful. Children in the White House.
Right,
Hadn't
right.
been for years.
Right.
We came from 8 years of Dwight Eisenhower with Mamie used to kissing him on the bald, if you can imagine having a bald forehead.
Yeah, right.
Before when they went to sleep. It was quiet. And John Kennedy invited all the living Nobel laureates to the White House.
Right.
And said at dinner, this is the most intelligence that has been here since Tom Jefferson ate dinner alone. Ate dinner alone.
Yeah.
We were blessed.
Yeah.
George Washington, the country was in different factions.
Yeah.
This one was fighting that one, this one couldn't stand that one, this one hated that one.
Of course.
The only one they were able to agree on was George Washington.
Yeah.
He had been on his white horse, literally.
Yeah.
Been on his white horse.
Right. Trenton.
They won by some fluke. They defeated the British.
Right. The largest military force arrayed against in all the world.
And the French were very happy. They sent troops over to help us because
finally,
they wanted the British away, not to invading Europe.
Right.
There was a reason they were helping us.
Yeah, history smiled on us.
History smiled on us. And we were sufficient distance away. They couldn't get here fast.
Yeah, right.
And they fluked into a victory.
Right.
And George Washington could have been president for life. He could have been king. He could have been called dictator.
Right.
He could do whatever he wanted.
As was the pattern.
Nowhere
and still
else.
is the pattern
Nowhere
in the
else.
world. Right.
Nowhere else. He said, no, president, 4 years.
Yeah.
And after 4 years, they said, 4 more years.
Yeah,
He said, I want to go. No, they persuaded him again.
Yeah.
And they said, another. He said, no, 2 terms is enough.
Right.
And that was the pattern until FDR, and now it's in the Constitution.
Yeah.
But 2 terms.
Right.
That was Washington.
Right.
And this country took off. We took off. And they created for us, and we hopefully for the generations to come will keep a system of freedom that the world has never seen before. We threw off the yoke of a king, the king whose power is derived from God, who could do no wrong.
Yeah.
Now remember, in 1066, a group of nobles in England forced the king
I
to
remember
sign
well because
the Great Charter, the Magna Carta.
Yeah.
And one law, first law, the first law, other than the Code of Hammurabi and stuff like that, but the first real law in writing.
That's what I was going to say.
Not even the King of England can cross the threshold of the worst mud hovel in the kingdom without permission from the owner of the mud hut or a government or a judge.
That's Magna Carta?
That's the Magna Carta.
Yeah,
first law.
Yeah.
And we still have it.
Yeah.
And there are people now who are arguing that the Bush administration, with the security problems, has tried to go beyond that to allow people to crash and enter the police under the guise of security.
Posse comitatus is also being under challenge.
Yes.
Among a lot of other things that were challenged.
There is nothing wrong with challenging anything, with discussing and challenging and discussing, because maybe our thoughts over 10 years, 5 years, 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, maybe our thoughts have evolved a little bit.
And things change.
And society changes. You and I were talking a few moments ago about your director having open heart surgery.
Yeah, God bless him. Yeah, Willie Stooks, everyone. He's doing well, we'd like people to know,
And
having had quadruple bypass surgery.
And he's almost ready, after a couple days, he's almost ready to be out of the hospital.
It's going to be a while. It's still
serious. Quadruple bypass is very serious.
But 20 years ago, it would have been unthinkable.
He would have been dead.
Yeah, right, yeah.
My question
my
to you
daddy died was buried on his 48th birthday. He was born in 1899. He was buried on his and that was the average age of a person born, a male born in the United States in 1899 was 48. It's now gone up to 80 or so that's some progress.
I'm 63, but I don't feel 63.
Oh, you're still young.
When I look at myself in the mirror in the morning, I go,
you look 24.
I go, hey, old man, where did you come from?
Go
away.
Oh,
go
you got
away.
the wrong mirror. You should have a magic mirror that looks you look 20.
Go away.
Yeah.
No, it's these. our life, our health, the vitamins, the this, the that.
Yeah.
Sure, there are things that can be improved.
Not to mention the internet and the things cyber that are going on.
Everything.
It's just staggering. It's going.
It goes faster and faster and faster and faster.
Right, you are. And I wanted to go back. You mentioned Hammurabi, and we had others in that. We had Roman law, and then we had Napoleonic. We have different codes and different systems by which societies have tried to organize themselves. They vary. There's the difference between the
Napoleonic, the code
Napoleon code, and our system of the common law that evolved. We're tied into the English common law tradition that goes back before even there were pilgrims here, in a sense, and maybe good to ground. And how many systems are there? The Napoleonic, or if you get into things like Islamic law, or you get into Hindu countries, or you get into other countries in Africa, and what are the systems? Like we had colonization, so you have the French code, and then you have the English.
Louisiana has the Code Napoleon.
Okay. Maybe you could talk about the legal systems as systems that do apply to the various societies of the world. And do we put in the United States system that we inherited from the British, the common law and so forth, in a unique position? And is it possible to see one of those, like ours, relevant to all the world, or the diversity of notions of legal thinking and so forth, relevant to a well-organized world society?
Everything is relevant to their own society and concepts and traditions.
Mm-hmm.
It changes, it flows, it evolves.
Yeah, right.
You can't take one system and superimpose it upon another society.
We try. People do try, don't they?
They try,
in the name of empire.
It doesn't work.
Okay.
It doesn't. And the people that get imposed upon them don't like it.
And they sure
and
don't.
And they rightfully don't like it.
Right.
How would you like to have been imposed with what was going on in Weimar Germany, or in Nazi Germany, or in Stalinist Russia, or in, you name the system.
So it's tied into political economy, the legal notion.
Realism, interpretation. It's not, the law is not 2 + 2 = 4.
Okay.
That's math. That's easy.
Right.
It's interpretation. It's the word reasonable, the word, as you said, the word common law. You could take common law concepts, one saying black and one saying white.
Right.
And they're both from the common law.
Well, you remember the
different times.
Yeah,
different times.
Absolutely.
There's an old expression, and it could be a rabbi, a priest, an imam, a minister.
Yeah.
3 people.
Yeah.
With a holy person, a person of faith.
Of wisdom schools.
One says, we should go this way.
Yeah, right.
You're right, my son. The other one says, we should go this way. You're right, my daughter. Third person says, but sir, how could they both be right? You're absolutely correct.
Yes. On the one hand and on the other, and they got that. Yeah, right. And it's hard because things change.
Things change.
Things change, particularly technology, constantly change. I don't think there would have been the developments in the United States had it not been for the overall thing called the Enlightenment, and the steam engine, and the technology that was coming out of a feudal period. And this history has got a certain kind of system that people live by, Hammurabi, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and that kind of thing in their time, and it changes and so forth. But the law is a very interesting thing, and what you're doing is you're building on a certain, and the law is, there's a term, rule by law. I think it's important that people can have a sense that there is a system of justice and there's a system of social organization that gives a sense of security of rule by law, and that's a very, very important concept for any society, I think, don't you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have certain rules we live by, and certain basic rules.
And people want to have...
Not killing.
Right, or arbitrary.
On the other hand, and we have a law in New York City, a rule, regulation, a statute, an ordinance, a municipal law.
Yeah.
You can't spit on the sidewalk.
Is that true?
Absolutely.
Is it legal?
You can get a ticket. You can get a ticket.
Get a ticket, yeah.
Walk along any street in New York.
Yeah.
And look and see how much pieces of chewing gum.
There's many.
Thousands.
I think so. There are many.
Thousands.
Do they turn black?
They turn black.
They turn
black
that's
spots.
chewing gum.
That's
what
chewing gum.
I was
all
asking my friend
over.
the other day.
All over.
Yeah.
All over.
So what are we going to do? All those people. We're going to have
the people
security
in
cameras so we can catch them all, put them in prison
they have
for
nothing else.
10-year terms.
We don't have enough prisons. We have enough prisons.
Okay, we got more than enough.
Rockefeller Center, they send out heavy steam and they clean it frequently. The Rockefeller Center area is immaculate. A few other places too, they clean it frequently. but 98% of the city, you see little black spots all over the place.
Just violated the law.
Law violated. Everywhere you turn,
Yeah,
people are violating the law. There are laws which are broken and people go, it really wasn't that bad.
There's room for common sense.
There's room for common sense.
There should be room for common sense, and there should be a judgment. But also, if you think about the establishment of this country, I mean, we had the Churchill, I think it was, who said the law can be an ass. And like we had a law called the Fugitive Slave Act.
Yes.
The institution of slavery was an abomination. It had to be abolished. It was in place when Jefferson and others and so
Jefferson
on.
And Jefferson.
if you had a slave who escaped that abomination, then you would be put in jail if you did not take that person, turn him over to the authorities so it could be put in servitude. And that was out of sync with what the historical pattern was insisting was going to develop, so that the law can be very much an anchor to history, but it can also be in the way of a change that should be coming. You understand what I'm saying?
Jefferson had slaves, and one of the slaves was someone he was in love with.
Sally Hemings.
She had children.
Yeah.
And having been at Monticello, his home, she was buried in the family plot, which was unheard of at the time.
Okay.
I'm a member of a temple in Manhattan.
Yeah.
The temple I'm a member of, the building was a part of the Underground Railroad during the.
So those people were running against. They were outlaws.
They were outlaws.
They were running against. They were going against the law.
They were doing what they believed to be God's law.
Okay.
But then so are the people who are opposing abortion. They think they're doing God's law.
Okay.
And the people who are in favor of abortion believe they're doing God's law. I don't know.
Okay.
I'll find out when I'm dead.
We got to have some sort of a system that's going to be able to arbitrate between all these different kinds of thoughts and so forth. And we did separate our church and state from here. Jefferson wrote his Bible.
Yep.
And it was very, very distinct, from...
Amazing. It's never been done. It was revolutionary in its time. Unbelievable. Now we take it as for granted. Unbelievable.
But this idea that the law can be... or if you could go to the thing where you were talking about. You were talking about Nazi Germany. If you did not turn in somebody of the Jewish persuasion, then you could be put up against the wall and shot as a lawbreaker.
They'd be shot on the street.
Right.
Some soldier would take the law into his own hands and shoot you right there.
The law can be used to justify tyranny, and is in many places that if you do not hold to the hold to the line, then you could be treated
as a criminal.
And it's done often and in the name of the law.
Always.
So it's very important.
Or in the name of security. Remember Mussolini made the trains run on time.
He did indeed, I understand.
And the Wehrmacht in Germany, the roads were incredibly smooth so that the war machine could move on them.
Right.
Sometimes it's good to have rocky roads.
And and
I'm not talking about Rocky Road ice cream.
Rocky Road's good. I love Baskin. I love ice cream. I think ice cream should be good for you.
Your Baskin Robbins delivery is on its way.
Okay, how come ice cream is not good for you and broccoli is?
I didn't know that.
I think that's true. Ice cream should be good for you.
Woody Allen did a movie.
Hot fudge sundaes should be good for you.
Woody Allen did a movie where after 1,000 years he woke up and he said, I'm hungry, I haven't eaten in a while.
Yeah.
I said, let me have some broccoli, let me have some yogurt, let me have some whatever.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, yeah, you're from America in the 1970s.
Yeah.
You thought that stuff was good for you. No, that's bad. That'll kill you.
Now
what you need is steak, sour cream, butter.
And hot fudge sundaes.
And hot fudge sundaes.
Yeah, right, like that. Well, that's what... See, it doesn't do any good to become mere president because the universe is set up wrong.
There you go.
I think we should have God elected. What do you think? Instead of him being just there imposing all these laws upon us, like hot fudge sundaes are not good, we should have elected, and I would like to run, and I'd like to solicit your vote.
There you go.
Would you consider my first plank?
Would you be a write-in candidate?
No, the first plank in my platform is hot fudge sundaes are really good for you.
What flavor ice cream?
And vanilla, of course, and with nuts and cherries, and also there's a caveat. On
is that
my
like a cherry?
this is the first plank in my platform to be God, to set up the universe right.
Okay.
And that is that without any exercise, without any exertion whatsoever, everybody ends up with rippling, beautiful washboard abs.
Oh, I'd love it.
Do you think I got some votes?
I haven't had washboard abs when I was
If I
6
promise
years
to
old.
set up that universe, are you thinking of voting for me? Have I got your vote,
I
Counsel?
campaigned for you.
Anyway, but the law is really important, and I was raised on it. My daddy used to talk a lot about it and that kind of thing. And now you've been a lawyer, and you went to St. John's and everything. And then the law also can be very specialized,
yes.
right?
Oh, absolutely.
You can get very specialized. There's jurisprudence, or there is the theory of law. And
Let's go philosophy.
It's philosophy. It's
philosophy of law.
Philosophy of law, right? But philosophy is a separate thing. They're all tied together. They're tied into political economy. They're tied into history. Everything is tied together. Why do we break things up? Why do we have to break things up into specialization rather than just trying to look at the whole of reality, and deal with the whole of reality as one system, so that we can set up systems that are going to be accommodative in a scientifically understandable way to the whole of the system, rather than special interests and special concentration upon one view of one part of the whole system, which is all one.
The days of Leonardo are over.
Are they really? You think so, really? You think they are?
I had the pleasure of being in Lincoln Center at the Mostly Mozart. I heard a violinist by the name of Joshua Bell. This man could play the fiddle. I jokingly said to the person behind me,
"You don't say fiddle when you're playing with a guy."
Oh, he plays his fiddle. He plays okay. He plays a fiddle made by Stradivarius in the year 1613 or 1713. Yeah. That's a fiddle.
Yeah, okay.
And I said to the person behind me, I wonder if he does weddings. He's young, he's good looking, he's about 40 years old, he's been playing professionally on stage for like almost 30 years.
Right.
He is brilliant. He is. It is a pleasure. Right. It's a privilege to be in the audience when he's playing live. But I don't know if he could fly a plane.
Yeah, right. No, but to the law is grounding. And the law can be...
Remember, Einstein, as brilliant as he was, couldn't add the change in his pocket.
Oh, he had a hard time. Yeah, that's often the case when you get people like that. But the law can be used in order to block, let's say, movements. Like you got a system in place, and people want to... So it anchors us to history and the historical institutions. But the institutions are being changed by technology and by things that are going on, so that we couldn't have had what we had if there had not been an Enlightenment or an Industrial Revolution coming. We're not coming to a post-industrial revolution. The whole world is united. It took 3 months to get a letter to London in George Washington's time.
And now you can get a letter to London in 0.1800 of a second on the internet.
And James Joyce, a philosopher who understood technology very well and the importance of it, or Marshall McLuhan did as well. He was at Fordham. He was Catholic. But they had this, and he had this line, Daedalus say, history is a nightmare from which I'm attempting to awaken. So that the law has been at the service of many, many aspects of human society that were elementally, for vast numbers, unjust.
Absolutely.
We had the kings. Most of us were wallowing around in the mud of peasantry poverty for most of the time. Or we had slavery. And we had all of these things that were unjust. So that
sometimes the slaves had it better than the people who were peasants and waddling around in the mud.
Well, okay,
sometimes.
The slaves were worse than the peasants, but they were all in a bad...
But they were slaves, so you didn't have the freedom.
The term, Counselor, history is a nightmare.
History is not to be repeated.
From which I'm attempting to awaken, and Santiago said we can't, we have to keep overdoing it if we don't learn from history. But the point being is there is transformation in the evolutionary process all the time, and something that's in place, you get what they called out of Rome, you get what they called an ancien regime. Yes. It was there for 1,000 years.
And it got
assize courts.
And it didn't change, and it got creaky, and it rotted from the base.
Right, and it had to be subsumed. Now, do you think the system of the United States is birthed and everything is a system that is good for the ages, or will the system that the United States, it was 200 odd years ago, we have a system that was in place. There was no manufacturing. There was no major, what we call postmodern.
It works.
Do you think it works there?
It works
it
now.
It anchors it to history.
It works now.
But is it sufficient to what the future requires?
I strongly doubt it.
You do.
But it's sufficiently
No, I'm not, if
flexible.
I may, Counselor, I'm not just talking about,
Yes,
I'm not
Doctor?
talking about the United States only. I'm talking about the world, because we're now becoming one united world. So is there going to be, as there was, the feudal order was subsumed within the historical development, and that's technology as well. So will the system that we created be subsumed within a system that is more just for greater numbers of people than it was able to be done out of the historical context?
Hopefully.
Okay.
Hopefully we are going to improve
So
what we have.
Okay. Okay.
And surely what we have now is better than they had in 1700.
No doubt. But it's not adequate to what the future requires.
As I said about the medical profession.
Yes, sir.
Tell me 20 years from now what's going to be what we think of as a
You can't.
You can't.
You can't.
You can't.
And
They're doing miracle. If someone from 1900, if they knew what was happening in the year 2000,
it would be
they'll go, my God, that's a miracle.
Yeah,
that's a miracle.
And you know what? The pace, the pace of the alteration, or the pace of the change is the rate of the pace of the change is increasing all the time. It's becoming exponential now, but particularly in the realm of information. They just had a paper a guy published. He said, tech is too cheap to meter. This is a leader, writer, editor of Wired magazine, a real brilliant guy. And he said, we must begin to manage for abundance rather than scarcity. All of the world history has been within a condition of scarcity. Economics is defined as the allocation of scarce resource. Scarcity has been a reality, zero sum. If one wins, another has to lose. That kind of thing?
Hopefully not necessarily.
Okay.
Hopefully there's enough around so if one wins, the other has something too.
But the premise being is that in all of history, there was never enough. In a sense that future is hearkening now, that we're perhaps transcending the conditions in which all of our institutions evolved, and there's a large change that's coming and needed, and our historical institutions are not adequate to what the future requires in terms of imbuing everybody in the world. 6/10 of the world is not well served by the institutions in place now on a world scale, much less the ecology we
Well,
understand.
100 years ago, it was 8/10 of the world.
I understand that, sir. I understand that. But what I'm talking about now, this year, 2009, we can get caught up with an idea that we have a perfect system and nothing's going to, we can put it on all the world, we can impose it on all the world, and it's not universal, and there may be big changes in the wind at the basic level of the institutional structure by which society is organized.
Heaven help us if we start to think that we have a perfect society now.
Thank you for that.
Heaven help us if we try to impose ourselves upon other people.
Don't you think we're doing that now? In the name of empire?
We've just changed administrations 8 months ago.
Thank God.
And the country is perceived as being much more worldly loving.
I would hope so, don't you? Yeah.
Are there still people that can't stand us?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are there still crazies in this world? Absolutely.
Do we still have a vision such as the future requires in basic institutional terms?
Absolutely.
Or are we still locked into systems that are dated in history and are not adequate to what the future requires?
What we view as democracy, what we do now in this country, was unheard of in 1789.
But what we do now is still not adequate.
And it will be changing. It will be improving.
You think so?
The people, the citizens, have to struggle and fight to correct what they perceive as being unfair, unjust, and improper. But they must do so within limitations.
Okay.
You don't take the guns and start killing because they disagree with you.
We've had enough of that, haven't we?
You go to the ballot, and you push the button, and you elect your candidates, and you run for office, and you start at the local level, and your local community districts, your local community boards, your cities, your towns, your villages, do what you can to improve, to make things better.
Yeah.
My father...
Within a rule of law.
Within the rule of law.
And that's really a bounding principle.
My father gave me one rule.
Yeah.
Only one. And I said it both times I was sworn in as a judge.
Yeah.
He said, use your education to help people.
Okay. Are you going to help all the people, or are you going to help the people that, let's say, are wealthy? Most of the system serves very well the wealthy. Do you notice the rich get richer and the poor get babies?
For
you understand?
Children, yes. Yeah. You should see how much pro bono work I do.
Oh, I'm not talking specifically to you. I'm talking maybe about the system, and congratulations on that. You should see.
I do what I believe is proper.
That's very good. I think it's good.
I don't need the congratulations.
I don't think we should have a system where people have to do what they do think is not proper in order to live or to have a living. Do you?
No.
I think people do.
Some do.
Too many?
There are Madoffs who want more and more and more and more and more. They weren't happy with what they had.
More importantly, is the system adequate to what the future requires in terms of a dawning real democracy?
The system has to be enforced. The system has to be enforced by people who are of intelligence, who realize that, as I said, 2 + 2 is not 4. It's got to be interpreted. It's got to be interpreted with reality, with compassion, with heart, with justice. It's not just law, it's law and justice. And that's not necessarily incompatible, it's not necessarily 100% compatible. It's, you've got to meld and blend. You can't have people running through the streets swinging clubs and hitting whoever they see.
We've had enough of that.
We've had too much of that.
Way too much of that.
Too much of that.
And brutes running around thinking they got the answer and everything.
Bullies are bullies.
Yeah, there's an Emily Dickinson poem saying, dazzle gradually. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's a good one. And it says you have to dazzle gradually. The superb delight, the true superb delight cannot be seen all at once. You must dazzle gradually. Now, or all men be blind, you know.
Now, I grew up, not older.
Amherst?
Not up. I grew older in the Bronx. And I can quote Casey Stengel talking about Whitey Ford. He didn't have a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, but as Casey said, he was sneakily fast. Probably the best, or one of the best.
Yoga Berra, deja vu all over again. Yeah, right. Yeah, you got great.
Brilliant man.
Yeah, brilliant poets out of the world of big league baseball.
You never know.
Yeah. But it is changing. Are you optimistic for the human prospect?
Rogers and Hammerstein, Oscar Hammerstein was the eternal optimist. And I grew up with Richard Rogers and Oscar Hammerstein's music and lyrics. And while I won't wash that man out of my hair, but I am the cockeyed optimist.
You are a cockeyed, you're optimist.
I'm an optimistic.
George M. Cohen was good too, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought he was really good. Yankee Doodle Dandy.
That was Cohen. That wasn't Cohen.
Wasn't that Cohen?
No.
That was Jimmy Cagney.
That was Jimmy Cagney.
Yes. Or that was an Amici. You know, they used to call the Amici the telephone.
Yes.
You remember that well enough. Yeah.
Hey, the Amici's ringing.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. They used to call.
I'm old enough to know what you're talking about.
Hello, Mr. Watson, come here. I need you. Or 100 years, 150. We didn't have electricity. And it's the pace of the change that's coming, and it's coming. They're moving into nanotechnology now. They're moving into computing. We're going to be swimming in bandwidth. We're going to be if you have a situation where there's not enough, and the law of supply and demand and so forth in economics, and you get into a place where there would be enough. Suppose we think 200 years ahead, going at the pace we're going now, on the assumption that the weapon systems that evolved at the realpolitik demand of the political leadership who would create weapon systems in order to get advantage over somebody else so they could steal the grain and become strong. They win over the other. All that whole nonsense that makes up history and so much. That the weapon systems now are perhaps, don't know for sure, but I believe they're species lethal. That if there was an unleashing of the weapon systems, finally, after 200,000 years of our being here, 10,000 generations, we finally get to the point where through our clever extension of capability, technology, and consciousness, we can destroy our entire species.
Could do it now.
Do you think it's true?
Could do it now.
Couldn't do it in the Second World War.
Nope. Could do it now.
That's in terms of we
live. Do it now.
So something big existential is going on that.
On the other hand, if there is indeed a God, maybe that's what God was waiting for us to destroy ourselves, and God will just turn around and create a new world somewhere else.
Well, that's a nice thing to do. It's a little bit disconcerting.
Maybe we're just a toy. Maybe we're just a toy.
Well, it's up for grabs in a way. But the point is, existentially, we can measure, we can model.
Yes.
And we can destroy, apparently, the species.
Will we be on the Earth? But 200 years from now, will we be having people living on the moon or somewhere else?
I don't think so. Will we have a system of elemental... Do you think we have a system worldwide, now talking worldwide, We're heading for 10 billion. We got 6.5 billion now. We're heading for 10 billion. I would say probably 6/10 of them live lives of horror, poverty,
no education,
woman wondering, no education, wondering which of her children she's going to let starve to death because she hasn't got some food to give the kid. And we have a capability of taking care of anybody. On the adverse side of that destructive scenario, we have a technologically augmented capability in order to provide for everybody and the ecology that our systems inherited will not let us realize because we're locked into a historical pattern of economic thinking, political thinking, organization, and we need another revolutionary transformation of the whole order, and it's not there by our intellectuals.
But maybe the baby that was born while we've been talking will be the one to create the new enlightenment.
Have we got that luxury? Can we put it off to history like that when we've got weapons that if one person set them off, it's the end of the ball game? Couldn't do it in the Second World War. We were trying, right?
We were
We were trying.
Yep.
Out of stupid killing each other as hard as we could, we were impotent in a gestating way. But we're now in a different ball game, right? You understand the existential? Yes. We're also impotent in the systems we've inherited. Don't let us do for everybody the capability that is intrinsic in our capability. The potential for doing good, living things for people is not able to be realized because we're outdated economic institutions, political institutions, legal institutions. All of the institutions by which the society is organized are out of date with what the future requires. Where the hell's the vision of a change such as the Americans brought to feudal Europe is needed for the world now, and it's not coming out?
But we
We
also have the intelligence to be able to limit ourselves.
Well, okay, important, yeah. And also not to get carried away with thinking about things that was like a Nazi thing. They thought they were the Ubermenschen.
They were going to be here for 4,000 years.
Yeah, for at least 1,000, right? It lasted 12.
1,000 years, you're right.
That was I understand, yeah. But you understand what I'm saying? Is it normal? With 10,000 generations, if you think of it that way, when first the Homo sapien. And this is a unique time.
Think of what society has gone from the year 1600 to 2000.
Yeah.
Where will we be? You said 400 years from now, 200 years from now?
Well,
we can't imagine. It's just the pacing is so fast and so on. Will we be only on the Earth? Will we be on Mars where there's water? Will we be on the moon? Will we be elsewhere? What will be? Will we be able to have indeed a society where 90% of the world is educated, or 95%?
Let's make it 100%.
Never
Why?
Have 100%
Why not?
anything.
Why? Why do we have to leave anybody behind?
No, we don't have to leave anybody behind, but it happens because there are always people on some island that will not be part of any system, that are living and don't want to be part of anything. Okay. There are people in the jungles in South America. There are people in jungles in Asia that they don't want to be part of anything. They just leave us alone.
Yeah.
Let us live as our great-great-great-great-grandparents lived. So there'll always be
and they
some.
should. So if people want to live
and let live.
The ability to have diversity is a very valuable part of what the rule of law allows for.
So should
Don't you think so?
So should the schools have languages, education in 5-6 different languages, or should everyone in the United States have to learn English?
That could become part of a question of our political class and our legal institutions. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
Those are things you have to deal with as a judge.
Absolutely.
And civil court, or you've been in the civil courts, yeah.
This is New York City.
Yes, sir.
We have every language of the world spoken.
Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? I love it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And when we need someone to interpret strange languages, we have people here who are available to translate.
Well, okay.
It's wonderful. It's other places.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Other places. No.
I hear tell that there's 192 countries at the UN in the world. And we have sizable communities of 189 of them in New York.
And how many languages on the 192 countries?
Well, there would be more. There might be more languages. There's about 5,000 languages in the world.
Unbelievable.
And one of the things that's coming up, Bryn and company at Google, one of the things they're putting a lot of attention to is getting it to where they can translate cybernetically, not only in a pedestrian kind of way, but also even philosophical, the languages of the world one to the other. Wouldn't it be marvelous? If you could speak in English and it comes out in Swahili.
What?
And back vice versa. That would have a big change.
I think Isaac Asimov.
The technology. Isaac Asimov was wonderful.
I think Isaac Asimov wrote a short story called The 5 Billion Names of God.
Did he?
And someone, in this short story, someone had, early days of computers, someone decided to program a computer to do languages and do names, as many characters as possible. And the computer was working, and names of God, names of God, names of the deity, names of God, names of God. And at some point, they got to the 5 billionth name. And the person's looking up at the sky. Apparently, there were only 5 billion names of God. And as the computer hit the 5 billionth name, one by one, the stars started to extinguish themselves. Maybe that was our purpose, to be here.
Well, that may be. We may be coming at the end. When you get to a point, if we're correct in that, is we've been gestating. We were gestating as Australopithecine for 4 million years. Then came Homo habilis. And then there's a speciation. There's a qualitative change. And we had Homo habilis, and then from Homo habilis came Homo sapien, 200,000. And we may be at a time of like coming to it's like gestating within a womb of evolutionary.
Are you telling me I'm a monkey's uncle?
Yes, so you're a monkey's uncle and a grandson, But no, but we may be coming into, like at the end of a pregnancy, we're like in the womb, and we're about to leave the womb in terms of that. And if you're in the womb, you cannot know what it is outside of the womb. You might want to try and project, but in the historical evolution of consciousness or something, we may be coming to what they call in evolution punctuated equilibrium. You get to where there's quantitative change, and then it's quickening. There's a quickening, qualitative, and then there will be a new relationship to the cosmos or to the evolutionary pattern characteristic of the time. We may be coming to a birth of a whole new relationship to the universe. In almost like, you can almost have to go to terms like speciation, or a whole new speciation that's occurring now at this very time. When you get to the point where we can destroy the whole thing, or we can provide in an unlimited kind of way for everybody to realize their full potentiality without taking it from anybody else, transcending of scarcity, we may be at a time of a qualitative transformation of bringing real fulfilled justice and appreciation of each cell of the human organism that collectively makes up Gaia, and we may be at a time of incredible transformation of the whole of the evolutionary process, perhaps. Now,
Harold, you started by asking me about my upbringing. I
Sorry.
started speaking about the Bronx, and we're now talking about the human evolution from whatever to where we are now. This has been an incredible journey.
Well, it does begin, because it's in our lifetime.
I never thought when I sat down here we'd be talking about this. I thought you'd be asking me about the Bronx and
the Bronx,
how Yankee Stadium was.
Take the Bronx.
And isn't it wonderful that a woman from the Bronx, Catholic upbringing, Hispanic upbringing, isn't that marvelous? Isn't that marvelous?
Latina,
more power to her.
A smart Latina. God bless her.
More power to her.
Yeah, and that court's very important in how that's done. And Obama, it's good to have. My daddy would have called him a class act. And John Kennedy was a class act. It's good to have somebody that seems to have an ability to form a sentence. But I still wonder about whether we have what we need.
Never have what we need.
Qualitative change. I don't know. And the law is extremely important. We just did a program aired this week with a guy from Indonesia, and Noah Feldman. Do you happen to know him?
No.
He's a scholar at NYU, real serious scholar, wrote a piece because one of the problems we have is with the Islamic world now. We used to have commies to kick around.
The principles of Islam are wonderful.
Yeah.
When people live up, the principles of Judaism are wonderful.
Yeah.
Principles of Christianity are wonderful.
Yeah.
Yet Christianity did the Crusades and killed Arabs and Jews in the Holy Land in the name of Christ, in the name of God.
It's a nightmare.
We kill in the name of God.
Yes, it's awful.
It's terrible.
Anyway,
I don't care who's God.
No, Feldman.
A deity is a deity.
But we used to have the commies to kick around. Remember Joe McCarthy and all that
before
stuff?
my time.
Well, anyway,
my grandfather. No, I'm joking.
That was horrible.
Yes, it was.
It was really horrible.
But we had Edward R. Murrow to stand up to him.
Thank God for that.
Luckily.
But now we got the Arab terrorists to kick around, and the Islamic terrorists and everything. And Noah Feldman wrote a book. He said the Islam. It's Sharia. They talk about Sharia. What they really want, what that is about, what they want, the people. You got 1.6 billion people or something, 1/4 of the world population, and we're in opposition to. And they want what essentially is a rule of law. It's the rule of law. We started talking about things legal.
Absolutely.
And they want a rule of law and a thing that gives
But
understanding
it's the
to
rule
it.
of law as they have adopted it to in those parts of the world, and they don't want a democracy system imposed on them.
Well, I don't either. I don't want anything imposed.
Maybe some parts of democracy would be good there. Maybe some parts of the Islamic religion would be good here.
Right.
Investigate it, study it, utilize it. Take the best parts of anything. Give credit where credit is due.
Right.
Utilize it.
Yeah.
Make lives better for our people, for our future
And
generations.
the people being all of us. Rather,
Everyone.
Like you have a law system for Jersey, or you have a law system for
You
Canada.
mean Jersey,
but you have
Jersey in England,
no,
or Jersey in New Jersey?
and New Jersey. I mean,
in the
differences.
Bronx, in the Bronx it's called New Jersey.
In Jersey,
New
right,
Jersey.
and Brooklyn, and everything. But but you have that. But one for everybody, that's the thing, is you have that, and that's what he said. I thought it was very thoughtful. It was in the New York Times Magazine. He said essentially what it is, because you got all kinds of cultural things that are crazy, and things that are not necessarily Islam. But Islam essentially, and it's growing very quickly, and we ought to try and understand it, and we could learn. They might have things we could learn from. They got very interesting ideas about the usury, and they've not avoided within certain scholastic areas where we've gotten around usury as a way of organizing society, and they got ideas. So we should try and make peace with them. But it's the rule of law.
When I was a law clerk,
we've only got a couple minutes
very
left.
quick.
Yeah.
My judge had two very religious Jewish people.
Okay.
And the person being sued says, I owe the money to the plaintiff.
Yeah.
And I want to pay him.
Right.
And the judge said, pay him. He says, no, I'm not taking it. Well, I mean, you're suing him. You want the money.
Yeah.
I want the money, but he insists upon paying me interest.
Ah.
I owe him the money with interest. I can't take interest. I'm not allowed by my religion.
He was Judy?
I'm both religious Jewish.
Yeah. Okay, right. Okay, yeah.
I'm not allowed by my religious principles to accept interest. It would be usury.
Yeah.
Sir?
Yeah.
I must give interest. I'm not
You
allowed
will
not to
take it.
give interest.
Yeah, right.
So it was
right.
the exact opposite of what,
Yeah.
as a judge, we appeal to you. What should do? And my judge, when I was a clerk, was very intelligent, very smart, very wonderful.
Yeah.
And he said, listen, can't the two of you agree upon a charity? You have to give interest. You can't take it. Give it to a charity. Have someone be helped. That way you both get what you need.
Right. This is the thing, judges.
That's why we have judges.
Yes, indeed.
You have
That's
a
what they have
third
to do.
head.
That's
They're
right.
called umpires. They're called referees. They're called judges.
Right.
Someone neutral.
Right.
Not pure. Not 100% from birth has never done anything wrong.
You're not totally pure?
Yeah, right. So, it should only be.
Yeah.
Someone who, from a neutral standpoint,
right.
can suggest something that both sides can live with.
Right. That's very important. It really is. I know I was raised on it, and I believe I used to read Darrow.
Absolutely.
Darrow for the defense and all of that, and it's there, and it's that kind of thing. And
it was a good movie.
It was. You like Inherit the Wind?
Yes.
Yeah, it was good.
It was a good stage show,
too.
They
used to have great actors.
Great on stage.
Spencer Tracy was
They were
so
still.
good.
They were great
Catherine
actors now.
I don't know. I don't understand the new. I don't know who they are even anymore. I got to get with it.
Get with it.
I'm going to try. Anyway, thanks for coming in. I'm sorry we run out of time. It's 58 minutes gone by.
I'm
very
sorry
quickly.
we run out of time.
Yeah, but it's your pleasure to have the perception of the Honorable J. Stuart Dankberg Esq. He's a retired judge of the civil court that he served so well in New York for so long, and he's also an attorney of high order and a philosopher, I would say, in terms of trying to understand the human condition. Jay, thanks a lot for coming.
Harold,
great pleasure.
A wonderful pleasure.
Great pleasure for you, and we invite you to tune in. We'll be coming back again, tomorrow. But that's it for this particular program. One more time, Jay, thanks a lot for everything.
If there's anyone live out there or alive out there, and please contact Harold. He needs telephone calls. He likes to know the people who are listening.
And if I need it, I got Counselor J. Dankberg back. I want to make sure we get